One Meal and a Tasting, written by Chantel Ray, narrated by Chantel Ray. Introduction. I'm so grateful for all the friends who I have interviewed and who have put up with me asking the same questions over and over. I would like to thank Missy Owens, Kim Hinton, Andrea DiGeronimo, Lori Baggett, and so many other thin women who have really helped me to understand at a deeper level what a thin eater eats. With their guidance, I feel like I keep learning more and more about the thoughts and mindset of a thin eater. I have so many people who have been so gracious and opened up to me, and I'm grateful to all of you. My top priorities in life are to be a great mom, a great wife, great businesswoman, and a great friend. I want you to know that I'm not perfect, but I'm in such a better place than I was years ago. When it comes to learning how to eat, you often have to take 4 steps forward and 3 steps back and keep going until you get to that place where you are happy. In the past, I would hear about the latest diet that everyone was trying, and I would just say to myself, I just can't do it. I know what it's like to have food as your best friend and as a comfort. I've been there, done that again and again. I understand feeling hopeless. I know what it's like to starve myself and then overeat. I would constantly try a new diet, and my day would be made or ruined by what I ate. I used to deprive myself and would go into this cycle, deprive, crave, binge. All that changed when I decided that no food was off limits, but I replaced it with the thoughts of eating mostly delicious, clean foods without being overly obsessive. I want you to know that all the women I have interviewed had the following in common. They do not count calories, do not count carbs in detail, do not obsess over everything they put in their mouth, do not yo-yo diet, do not have meal plans, do not measure every little bit of food in their mouth. As a result of my time with them, I can now say that I do not binge on food anymore, and I rarely overeat. The goal of this book is to help other people break free from being tormented by food. I am not a nutritionist. I'm a woman who's been where you are and took some time to question those who were where I wanted to be. I am, however, an expert on intermittent fasting because of the years I've spent researching, interviewing thin women, and applying the principles that I learned to obtain my goals. Waste Away was the beginning of the story, but this book is the continuation. When I wrote that book, I'd only been living some of the principles for a few short months. All of the principles are still applicable, but in this book, I dive much deeper. I now realize that I didn't totally understand some of the concepts when I wrote that first book. For instance, I now understand that eating 2 full-sized meals per day was actually more food than I really needed. The more you use these tools, the more they become second nature. You can be the girl that can eat 3 French fries and not eat any more. Trust me, I do it. If you haven't already read Waste Away, The Chantel Ray Way, I hope you'll give it a read. If you've already read it and are continuing with this one, you will learn to eat like a woman who is intuitively thin without even thinking about it. There are some things I'm still not good at, but I watch my thin friends and I learn to get better and better every single day. I encourage you to read this book over and over until the ideas become second nature to you. If you haven't read Waste Away, The Chantel Ray Way, I encourage you to do so. You can also listen to my podcast at chantelrayway.com for tons of free resources to assist you on this journey. The most important chapter. This chapter is the most important chapter of this entire book. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what you can expect to be discussed in detail as you read this book. Even though I'm giving you this overview, it's absolutely crucial that you read the entire thing because a lot of times what happens is you read a portion and they go, okay, I get the gist of it, and then you stop reading. This is where I went wrong with my interviews. When I interviewed people, I learned 80% of it and wrote it in my first book. I realized that I missed valuable information after I had already written it. I almost entitled this book Intuitively Thin Habits because one of the things people who are successful do is consistently demonstrate the disciplines that other people only show occasionally. Let me give you an example. Some people save a little bit of money and then they start going crazy buying large items and big cars that they can't afford. However, people who are financially wealthy make sure they are continually making wise investments, and sometimes they splurge. Overall, they are consistently making the wiser choice. I believe that is one of the habits that thin people do intuitively. They look at their eating on a weekly basis instead of daily. For example, if they had a bad day and eat more than they want to, they just make it up for the next day or later in the week. Everyone always says, I need a specific meal plan to follow to stay thin. Remember, there is no meal plan. One person may feel horrible after they eat avocados, but avocados are healthy and lots of thin people eat them all the time. In my last book, and probably somewhere in my podcast, I may have said something like, I don't eat a lot of grains or beans. I get the question a lot asking, what is wrong with grains and beans? There are a lot of thin people who eat grains and beans and do intermittent fasting. I do occasionally eat them, but I don't feel my best when I do. I do more of a keto flex diet where I add a sprinkling of grains and beans into my diet sporadically. I tend to focus on eating with fruits, vegetables, and items with lots of protein. This is just how I feel my best. So you have to customize what you eat to feel your best. This is what thin eaters do all the time. They are consistently doing things that heavier people only do occasionally. They make small decisions that make a big difference over time. That is what my friend Kim says is her number one thing to do. Be consistent over time. Habits matter, and one of the things you'll learn are the habits of these intuitively thin eaters. We realize that what we do to our bodies will be a reflection of what we will do continually, not just for a couple of days. I remember reading a statistic somewhere on Google that says over 90% of New Year's resolutions that people make aren't in effect by the end of January. 90%. That means only 10% of the people actually follow through. That is just crazy. One of my biggest concerns is that you're going to read a section and hear that sometimes I eat half a donut, and then you'll take that and go, okay, I can do that too. Part of being thin is not eating half a donut every day. One of the things you will learn in this book is that thin eaters eat in a keto flex diet. They sprinkle their diet with decadent food choices. The key word is sprinkle. The other thing that people do is focus on the what, but they don't focus on the how they got there. They also focus on who they want to be. So for me, I had to look at myself and say, I want to be an intuitively thin eater. I want to consistently consider what a thin eater does. That's what motivated me to keep asking them over and over what they do. If you think about it, every person wants to be physically fit. I've never met anyone that was like, you know what, I really just want to be 300 or 400 pounds. Being physically fit is everyone's goal. If we all have the same goal, then why do some people achieve it and some people don't? Every one of the NFL football teams says, we're going to win the championship this year, but some achieve it and some don't. We have to look at why you will or will not be able to achieve your goal. The answer lies in inconsistency. I see people all the time that are like, wow, I gained 50 pounds. I don't know how that happened. Or I gained 20 pounds and I didn't even notice. It just crept up on me. Here's what I see heavier people do all the time. They will eat a salad and other healthy meals for 3 days in a row. And after the 3 days, the scale doesn't move. You hear them say, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. This isn't working. And they give up. As you know, I didn't lose any weight for over 3 weeks when I first started intermittent fasting. The third week, I lost 6 pounds. I've seen people who do intermittent fasting for 2 days. Maybe they had a lot of salt and they get on the scale and they gain 2 pounds and they go, this doesn't work, and then they quit. When you don't see the results you want, avoid going into an attitude of saying, oh, forget it, I'm just going to go eat half of a cake. Or maybe you eat a third of the cake all in one session and don't gain any weight. So then you incorrectly conclude that bad decision didn't really move the needle that much. When you don't see results fast enough, you mistakenly conclude that small good decisions don't matter that much. This is a big mistake. A small change or a small tweak that you do every day does make a big difference. When you quit, you miss out on the truth that our lives are the culmination of all those small decisions and that all those small little decisions matter. That's the piece I really missed the first time around that I want to teach you this time. One of the things the thin eaters say is that they eat in the same patterns every day and every week. For instance, making the small decision that you're going to have black coffee instead of coffee with tons of cream and sugar. The Bible says, "Do not be weary by doing good, but at the proper time we will reap a harvest." I just started gardening, which I hate, by the way. I never realized how long these little seeds take to grow a little mini cucumber. It takes a while to reap the harvest. You can't be impatient. The best way for you to be consistent is for you to have accountability. To help you with this, we have private coaching and group coaching at chantelrayway.com/coaching, or you can join our Facebook accountability group. You will see that a lot of things I'm going to share I follow on a regular basis. One of the things I really struggle with is eating slowly. To fight this, I have to remind myself about the parasympathetic nervous system. Our nervous system has two primary parts that are crucial to understanding. First, one of the things that my podcast guests have told me, in addition to slowing down when I'm eating, is to reduce my stress when I'm eating. Thin eaters predominantly eat at night when things are calmer. So when thinking about when time is best for your eating window, you should decide on a time you are not too stressed to eat. For me, when I'm at work, I'm stressed most days. Another thing my podcast guests have told me is that a sympathetic nervous system controls our fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system controls our rest and digest response. We always want to eat when we are in a parasympathetic state. Our sympathetic nervous system kicks in whenever we're experiencing any kind of real or perceived threat. If fear, real or imagined, shows up in your thoughts or environment, i.e. being chased by a fox in the woods, running late for a plane, or trying to finish a never-ending to-do list at work, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Think about this. Digestion is not essential when we're fighting for our lives. If we find ourselves in a massive stress response, like if a lion was chasing us, our digestion completely shuts down. In our world, that lion chasing us might be having a strict deadline for work and being completely stressed out. It would make total sense. If we did have a lion chasing us, why would we need massive digestive enzymes to be kicking in at that time? Even judging ourselves for eating 4 cookies in one sitting, we activate our fight or flight response and shift into a stress zone. Remember, we don't want to get goals that are do goals. We want who goals. Who do I want to be in my weight loss? For me, I want to eat like an intuitively thin eater that never goes on a diet ever in her life. I want to break free of diet jail. I never want to have foods to buy. I never want to count calories or count points. I want to control my portions and satisfy my hunger. I only want to eat when I'm physically hungry, and I want to recognize when I'm truly hungry instead of eating for emotional reasons. I want to obey God, and I never want to overeat. You have to put systems in place to be successful. And in this book, you're going to hear systems that some of the thin women use that make them successful. The number one system they use is eating one meal and a tasting. Every once in a while, one meal, and sometimes one meal and 2 tastings. The majority of what they eat is a KetoFlex diet without knowing that they are eating that way, and sprinkling their meal with some decadent foods they love. Remember what your end goal is. Who do you want to be? Do you want to think like a thin eater? If so, you have to fix your daily habits. Download my podcast, Waste Away Through Intermittent Fasting, and listen to the podcast on habits for more in-depth tips. I want to share with you some conversations I had with some of my friends. We will dive deeper later in the book, but this will give you some insight into the lives of women that I respect and value who happen to be thin eaters. I believe that people learn from real stories from real people, and these people are as real as it gets. My friend Andrea is one of the few thin people I know who have a longer eating window. At 9 a.m., she's eating her tasting in the morning, and then she eats dinner at night. She usually skips lunch. Because of this, she will sometimes do 2 tastings. She will do something really small in the morning, like a quarter of a banana, 4 strawberries, and 3 nuts. That's how little she is eating in the morning. In the summer, she only does 1 meal and a tasting because she wants to be thinner in the summer for the bathing suit season. For me, one of the things I did to lose a lot of weight is intermittent fasting by eating in a 6-hour window. I still have more weight that I want to lose, but it's because I was eating 2 meals a day that I failed to lose the weight. The only way for me to get to the weight that I want is to do one meal and maybe a tasting, depending on how big that one meal is. Where I went wrong was eating 2 meals in that 6-hour window. And the other thing is, if I ate too much at lunch, I should not have a tasting at dinner. I wasn't physically hungry. That's the difference these women did. If they have too much at lunch, they don't have dinner. That's a big deal. This is going to be mind-blowing to you. Go to Google and search for weight and calories. You will see that it's like 40 calories or more per 5 pounds. Again, I'm not counting calories, but some charts show you the calories needed to lose 5 pounds is a very small amount of food. It can be the difference in eating half of an apple a day that can make you 5 pounds heavier. And again, I'm a big proponent of not counting calories, but sometimes I must mention this to open up people's eyes. The smallest amount of extra food could be keeping you from being the weight you want to be. Thin eaters are cognizant of calories. They know that avocado is high in fat and calories, but it also is so great for you. They will not eat 2 whole avocados in a sitting. I can tell you I have probably eaten more than 2 avocados while eating guacamole. But again, I have to be mindful to not eat too much and let it get out of control. What is important to note is that none of these women are counting calories. I have provided the approximate calorie count for context, but I assure you they aren't counting calories. When asked what this looks like on a day-to-day basis, my friend Missy said, at 1 p.m. I wanted chicken tenders, so I ate 1.5 chicken tenders over top of a salad. Another day for my tasting, I ate 1 piece of toast with an egg and a slice of bacon. But both nights at dinner, it's protein and non-starchy vegetables. It's probably about 300 calories for my tasting. One night, I might eat onions, mushrooms, and half of a steak for dinner. Another tasting, I would make pickled vegetables and an arugula salad with hummus. It's either a salad with protein or half of a sandwich or an open-faced sandwich. I only eat 1 slice of bread with whole grains. Then at dinner, I will have protein and veggies. I eat what I want, but I eat a lot of veggies. Over and over, the stories are consistent. I eat 1 meal at night and I eat something 200 to 450 calories for my lunch, even though they never know how many calories it is. One of the reasons they almost all have lunch as a tasting and dinner as the meal is because they want to have a lot of energy during the day. Digesting food takes a lot of energy. They have enough during lunch so they don't go crazy at dinner. So if you look at how many calories these women are eating, it's approximately 1,400 to 1,500 a day. They're having, 1,200 calories in their dinner and about 300 calories in their tasting. It isn't that thin women actually pay attention to counting their calories, but they are aware of when they are actually hungry. Eat what they want and have a small tasting instead of a midday meal, and don't overeat. I would ask someone, what do you eat and what time do you eat? 9 times out of 10, they would say, I'm just not a big breakfast person. I never eat breakfast, so I start eating around 1 o'clock, and then I usually eat dinner around 5:30 p.m. I pretty much finish around 6 p.m. I would ask another person and she would say, I start eating a snack around 2 p.m. I'll have something small and then I will have dinner around 6:30 p.m. After interviewing them more in depth, I realized that all of them were eating 1 medium-sized meal and a snack or a tasting. For example, when I asked my friend Laura, what did you eat yesterday? She remarked that she had a big lunch and said, I was full, so I didn't eat anything the rest of the day. This is a perfect example of how I would have watched her eat that big meal, and in my mind, before I would say, see, she can eat whatever she wants and still stay so thin. But I didn't realize that's all she ate for the whole day. I would eat exactly what she ate, but then go home and eat dinner and be like, why am I not thin? I ate exactly what she did, when in reality, I had eaten so much more. As I began to dig deeper, I realized what all these thin women were doing. Not only were they doing intermittent fasting, but it seems like they were just having 1 meal and a tasting or just 1 meal some days. I realized that the thinnest girls naturally eat this way. The other piece is asking the question, what are you deciding to eat? One of the biggest questions they ask themselves is, how am I going to feel about myself after I eat this? The second is, how am I going to feel physically after I eat it? Is it worth it? Almost every person I would interview would say, if I have a carb or bread for lunch, I would not be having rice or potato for dinner. Not because they didn't want another serving of carbs, but rather the excess carbohydrates would make them feel overly full. They might have one slice of bread on an open-faced sandwich for lunch and salmon and veggies for dinner. They might have a burger with no bun and then eat some fries and shrimp and vegetables for dinner. For lunch, they might have grilled chicken salad, and then dinner is maybe rice and chicken and broccoli. I'm beginning to see a trend here. They all say, I don't like to be too full after I eat. 100% of the women I interviewed always said they don't like to be too full because they feel tired and have no energy if they eat too much. This, that, or bites of both. I'm going to talk about that several times in this book. This is how thin eaters eat. Thin eaters are not getting pasta, bread, and dessert. They are either getting pasta or bread or dessert. If by chance they want to get all of them at one meal, then they only have 3 bites of pasta, 3 bites of bread, and 3 bites of dessert. But they normally don't do this. It is this, that, or bites of both. I tried to make it catchy so you can say it every time you're making a decision. Should I have this or that? Or do I want bites of both? When I asked one of the thin eaters why she wouldn't have alcohol and dessert together, she would say that would be like eating a double Whopper at Burger King. They don't do the double Whopper. They don't do alcohol with sugary desserts. They don't do a high-carb pasta and a sugary dessert. They choose either this or that, or fun-sized bites if you want to get into the fat-burning zone. This is especially true when it comes to sugar, carbs, and alcohol. I asked all of the thin women that I interviewed about how much sugar they eat. They said, I might have 50 calories of something sweet, like 2 chocolate candy kisses after I finish my meal. Or others would say, instead of doing something little each day, they might have 1 dessert at the end of the week on a Saturday night. Some of the very thin women might say, I might have a dessert every other week if I really, really want it. One of the thin girls said, if I do eat a dessert, I don't also have alcohol within a 24-hour span. I look at things in about a 3 to 7 day window of time as far as how much sugar, carbs, and alcohol I have been eating. This was an aha moment for me. None of the girls would really eat dessert every day. Some of them might have had 2 bites every day of something sweet, while another one had nothing during the week. But then on Saturday, they might have 3/4 of a dessert at a nice restaurant. And the real skinny ones might have had half a dessert every other week. If you're eating too much sugar, the sugar is going to interfere and stop you from getting into that fat burning zone. When I asked the thin eaters about maintaining their lifestyle, every single person that I interviewed would say the same thing. You know, if I gain 3 or 5 pounds more than I would like, I just stop eating sweets and have a little less carbs for a week or 2, and that will help me lose the weight that I want. Then I can introduce sugar and carbs back in small amounts. One thing I have found will really hinder me from losing weight is having too much vegetable juice and fruit juices. I really try not to have fruit juices except for a splash of cranberry juice in my water. For me, juice really spikes my insulin and I have to be really careful with it. The one juice that I have to drink because my electrolytes can get off is coconut water. Even with coconut water, I try to only have about half of a cup. Everyone in my office knows that if I'm not feeling great, a half a cup of coconut water makes me feel like a new person. There's only one brand I like, Nirvana brand, and it's made from real young living coconuts. Otherwise, I can only drink it straight out of an actual living coconut. The other aha moment that I really had was just how few times a thin eater is eating sugar. What I realized is they're having about 50 calories of sugar per day, meaning half a cookie or 2 small Hershey Kisses, or they're having 3/4 of one big dessert, maybe once a week or maybe every other week. Sugary desserts throw out so much of your fat burning that it's really, really important that you limit it as much as possible. Now, when we look at the hunger scale, if you think about it, most people eat dessert when they are at a level 4 on the hunger scale. But people who are thin save room for dessert. They might eat until they are at a 3.7 on the hunger scale, and then maybe a dessert every now and then to take them to a max of 4.0 on the hunger scale. Again, they only do this every now and then, and this is what I got wrong in my first book. What I have found is that most overeaters wait until they're at a 4.2 and then say, I'm going to have something sweet that puts me to a 4.6. In my first book, I said that you could have something decadent, maybe 3 bites of it once or twice a day. But honestly, that is just too much. As I'm interviewing more thin people, they aren't having that kind of sugar every day. They're really limiting how much sugar that they can have. I'm going to make a chart so that you can see how much sugar is in some of these foods and how this is going to stop you from getting into fat burning if you are overdoing it. The other thing that thin people do is that they often will have fruit if they want something sweet, and that will kind of curb some of their sugar desire. Let's look at some examples of what you can eat instead of some of your favorite sugary desserts. Let's look at the Snickers bar. With the amount of sugar and calories in one candy bar, you could eat approximately 3.5 peaches. One slice of chocolate mousse is about 300 calories, which is the same as eating 3 apples or 4.2 slices of Dave's Killer Thin Slice bread. One Snickers bar's calories has the same amount of calories as 8 cups of raw broccoli. One slice of cheesecake has the same amount of calories as 80 almonds. The way that thin people eat their chocolate is they literally take a tiny piece and savor it. I was watching my friend Christy eat a piece of chocolate, and she will take a piece and let it melt into her mouth, giving the chocolate a minute to melt and savor that piece. Then she will put in another piece, and in the end, she's eating just a few pieces of dark chocolate. My mother likes to eat these organic chocolate chips. She will take a small handful, put them in her hand, eat a few chocolate chips, and that's the end of it. My favorite candy bar is a Snickers bar. You can get the fun-size Snickers bar, take half of it or cut it into quarters and let it melt into your mouth. I love to freeze them, so I put them in the freezer and then you can crunch on them. Most overeaters will literally eat a Snickers bar in 4 bites and it will be gone in a second. I definitely feel like people who drink fruit juice, and it can be any kind of juice, apple juice, prune juice, grape juice, pineapple juice, may struggle because of the amount of sugar in the juice. I'm going to list a few different fruit juices here, and I'm going to put the number of calories and the amount of sugar that I just Googled for each of these. Here's the information I pulled from Google. Half a cup of strawberries, 4 grams of sugar, 27 calories. 1 Twizzler, 5 grams of sugar, 40 calories. 1 cannoli, 17 grams of sugar, 187 calories. Half a cup of blueberries, 8 grams of sugar, 43 calories. 1 Reese's cup, 8 grams of sugar, 87 calories. 1 medium chocolate chip cookie, 9 grams of sugar, 78 calories. 1 fun-sized Twix, 9 grams of sugar, 80 calories. 1 cup of watermelon, 10 grams of sugar, 47 calories. 1 Krispy Kreme donut, 10 grams of sugar, 190 calories. 1 medium peach, 13 grams of sugar, 59 calories. 1 slice of apple pie, 19 grams of sugar, 296 calories. 1 cup of cantaloupe, 14 grams of sugar, 60 calories. 1 fudge brownie, 42 grams of sugar, 310 calories. 10 gummy bears, 16 grams of sugar, 87 calories. 1 large banana, 17 grams of sugar, 121 calories. 1 medium pear, 17 grams of sugar, 105 calories. 1 medium apple, 19 grams of sugar, 95 calories. 1 regular size Payday bar, 21 grams of sugar, 180 calories. 1 slice of pumpkin pie, 25 grams of sugar, 323 calories. 1 slice of cheesecake, 27 grams of sugar, 401 calories. 1 regular size Snickers bar, 20 grams of sugar, 215 calories. 1 slice of birthday cake, 30 grams of sugar, 424 calories. 1 slice of pecan pie, 31 grams of sugar, 503 calories. 1 king-size Milky Way, 31 grams of sugar, 230 calories. 1 regular-size Skittles, 45 grams of sugar, 231 calories. 1 cup orange juice, 18 grams of sugar, 111 calories. 1 cup apple juice, 27 grams of sugar, 113 calories. 1 cup cranberry juice, 30 grams of sugar, 136 calories. 1 cup pineapple juice, 25 grams of sugar, 130 calories. 1 cup grape juice, 36 grams of sugar, 152 calories. So one of the things that, again, I'm seeing thin people do is when they have a dessert, they will only eat about 3/4 of a dessert every week or every other week. Let's say it's a piece of chocolate cake. They'll maybe eat half or 3/4 of that piece of chocolate cake, maybe once a week or every other week. So in the end, they're eating maybe 400 calories worth of dessert. This dessert is taking the place of another food, meaning you're not going to fill up to a level 4 and then eat all the way from a 4 and end at a 4.3 or 4.5. Some of you may choose approximately 50 to 75 calories per day as a meal finisher. What I like to do instead is just have a little bit of coffee with cream, and then once every other week have 400 calories as one big dessert. I suggest doing this every other week if you want to be really thin. If you don't want to be super thin, then have one every week. I'm finding more about how little sugar they're having, but again, they're not depriving themselves. In addition to not wanting to be overly stuffed during the day, they also considered whether or not the food they are presented with is really worth it. Recently, I went to dinner with my friend Kelly. When we tasted the bread, she took 1 bite and said, "It's not worth it." The bread didn't taste good enough to make it her grain and carb for the day. The next weekend, we went to a different restaurant. She took 1 bite of the bread and said, "This bread is worth every bite." She meant that the carbs and calories in that bread was worth using her daily amount of carbs on those bites. Let me give you another example. I have 3 pairs of shoes in my closet that are over $200 for each pair, but they were so gorgeous, I decided to buy them, even though in general, I don't spend more than $200 on a pair of shoes. It's a good example of something that I only do about once a year because those shoes are rare and worth the extra money. Most people are constantly aware of how much money they spend and how much they save. What if we thought about food in the same way? We must balance our checkbook or our Venmo account to keep track of what we spend. Just like we want to be financially wealthy, we want to be physically healthy. So asking yourself similar questions when presented with food choices could totally impact your investment in your body over the long term. For example, for me, I love to go to the Ritz-Carlton in Four Seasons. Every time I go, I spend too much money. Their massages are like $180 a pop. I also love to go to the spa, and I end up spending too much for the weekend. To make up for it, when I get home, I don't buy any clothes. I don't buy new makeup, and I eat at home. This allows me to balance what I just spent. The same could and should be applied to how we eat. So how can you subscribe to the 1 meal a day OMAD concept and not feel famished? Initially, your body will take some time to adjust, especially if you've been eating a lot during the day. However, you'll get used to it and you won't want to eat any other way. Remember, this is not a diet. Diets don't work because they are not sustainable. Remember, I've tried them all. Rather, this is a change in the way you live in a relationship with food. I'm not big on depriving myself, but I love sugar. Even I can get out of control with sugar. Right now, we're all trying to boost our immune systems. Did you know that eating sugar can weaken your body's defenses significantly? Sugar feeds things like cancer cells and can cause the overgrowth of yeast in the body. Moreover, it can lead to diabetes and other conditions that can significantly impact your quality of life. Despite this, roughly 70% of Americans are eating way more sugar than they should have per day. Your body gets its fuel from 3 kinds of food: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates, carbs, come from bread, fruits, vegetables, and more. Fat and protein come from meat, dairy, nuts, and fatty vegetables like avocados. Your digestive system breaks down each food and sends it to your digestive tract. Your body uses insulin to process the sugar from the carbs you eat. So the amount of insulin your body creates really depends on how much sugar you're taking in. When you hear the word sugar, you might be visualizing table sugar, but sugar also comes from the breakdown of carbs. Just the other day, I had one more interview with a super skinny model. She eats all her daily calories in about a 4-hour eating window, just like many of the other women I've talked to repeatedly, and she's very healthy. She will break her fast with a small meal around 2 p.m. when she's feeling a little hankering for something, then maybe a small snack at 4, and finally a true dinner around 6 p.m. Her dinner could be a green salad with a half a cup of rice and some fresh grilled tuna, while her midday snack may be a couple of hard-boiled eggs or a small bit of grilled chicken. She follows the same pattern I've heard over and over again. Vegetables with protein as the main staple of the day, with about half a cup of grains and a half a cup of fruit each day. One of my friends at snack time, let's say around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., if she goes out to eat, she's getting a small side salad with very little dressing, or she's having vegetables with hummus, basically a high-protein snack with veggies. Sometimes she'll have a couple of hard-boiled eggs. Maybe she'll have some peanut butter with celery sticks or a turkey roll-up. A lot of times she'll have raw vegetables with some kind of mustard dressing that's very low in calories. Maybe she'll eat a sweet potato or regular potato, but she's having one serving of it and that's it. Mostly she's having lots of veggies like raw vegetables, and then for dinner, she eats whatever she wants, but she'll focus on high protein and high veggies. Okay, so let's say you want to do one meal a day and a tasting. Let's say you're on vacation and your breakfast is included with your meal. I don't do this when I'm at home, but while I'm on vacation, I could have 3 eggs over medium. I don't eat the egg whites because of my sensitivity, so I could eat 3 egg yolks for breakfast around 9. And then at 1 o'clock, I could eat a salad with grilled chicken. Then I could skip dinner altogether, maybe just drink coconut water. Now, I want to talk to you about being obsessed with food and dieting. One of the things that is really important is to make sure that I'm not thinking about food, reading about food, shopping for food prep, or constantly thinking about it all the time. I have to ask myself what I really want, like what am I really wanting, and then I have to actually eat that. I do this because I know if I don't, then I'm going to crave something else, and then I'm going to eat more. I need to make sure that I eat what I really want, what I'm really craving, and get exactly that. My son is a perfect example of this. If he doesn't absolutely love something we give him to eat, he just won't eat it. I've seen it over and over again with my thin friends, and it's so important. I want to share another story with you. One of my friends got a grilled chicken salad that was really plain because it was healthy, and I got chicken fajitas, which I love. She really wanted the chicken fajitas but decided against it. I ended up eating about a third of the fajitas, but she ate her salad and the rest of my fajitas because she was not satisfied. So be careful. You really need to balance it. You will hear a similar version of this story again later in this book. It is intentional that I repeat myself and say things over again in this book. I say things multiple times for you to truly internalize it. One of my friends, Michelle, read my first book and lost 5 pounds, but then was stuck at a plateau. I told her to go back and listen to my audiobook 3 times. She listened to it every day for 15 minutes a day. And guess what? She lost her last 15 pounds. The more times you hear this truth, the more successful you will be. There is this Italian restaurant here called Aldo's, and they have this dish called shrimp gorgonzola. It is so good. You can just get the shrimp as an appetizer and get it without the pasta, which is what I normally do. Guess what? That totally satisfies me. I could get the pasta and get my satisfied meter to a 9 or a 10, but I was just as satisfied with just the shrimp. Let's talk about hunger and fullness. You have to get in tune with your body and ask, how hungry am I? How full am I? This is the only way you're going to successfully lose weight with intermittent fasting. When you learn how to evaluate true hunger, you're going to discover you don't need to eat as much food or as many meals as you think. My experience with the thinnest women I met, they either eat one meal or one meal and a tasting. The time they only have one meal is when they go out to eat and have had a lot of food and got their fullness scale to a 4 or 4.1, which sustains them for the full day. Take the story of sisters Edna and Nona. They decided they were going to eat the exact same thing. Edna decided, even though she committed to eating the same thing as Nona, that she wanted to have a little something for breakfast. Nona ate nothing for breakfast, lost 3, almost 4 pounds that week, but everything else they ate was the same for lunch and dinner. Edna had the audacity to say, I knew I wasn't going to lose weight eating those tacos and the fajitas I ate this week. The sister who lost weight ate the same thing. I asked her why she ate the hard-boiled egg and toast for breakfast, and she thought she had to eat something in the morning to start the day. Her response was the one boiled egg only had about 80 calories, and half a piece of sprouted grain toast had 50 calories, plus a little bit of butter, so it was between 150 to 200 calories, and she didn't think it was that big of a deal. It was a big deal because Nona had lost the full 3.5 to 4 pounds because she didn't have those things for breakfast. This is the most profound sentence. Say this sentence to yourself. Eating any food, even if you think it's super healthy or it's low calorie, when you're not physically hungry, will cause you to put on weight. Learning and understanding your hunger scale is one of the most important things you can do for yourself and your weight loss journey. Like my friend Catherine says, I love when I'm hungry. I love when I hear my stomach growl, because when I hear my stomach growl and when I get hungry, I know my body is eating its own fat. Let me give you an example of the balance of eating healthy and getting the results you want. This is how I eat chips and guacamole at a Mexican restaurant. I love guacamole, but I have to be careful because I can tend to eat too much of it. What I do is I get the guacamole, but I always have people with me, so I always share. I take the guacamole and put a couple spoonfuls on my plate, and that's all I'm going to allow myself to have. Often I ask if they have cucumbers and if they can slice some up for me. I eat them with guacamole, and then I might take 2, maybe 4 chips, and I eat that with the guacamole with some salsa. I love the cucumbers, so I don't feel deprived when I eat them. They are crunchy, and I love it. Sometimes I want a little more crunch, so I will eat a couple of chips, but not too many. As I was interviewing people, I noticed that there were 2 kinds of eaters. Some people were sweet people, and some people were salty people. Then some people love crunchy foods, and some people love soft foods. For me, there is no question that I have a serious sweet tooth. I've always loved chocolate, soft moist cake, crunchy cookies, ice cream, and all types of candy. While I definitely have my moments craving chips or pizza, my sweet tooth outweighs my salty cravings all day long. Each one of the thin eaters I interviewed said they either craved crunchy or creamy soft foods. I will list some examples of each. See which one you identify with more. Crunchy foods: carrots, chips, hard tacos, crispy cookies, the outside of the brownie, hard cheddar cheese, brownie brittle, crispy fries, crunchy peanuts. Soft foods: cooked veggies, soft tacos, soft cookies, the middle of the brownie, whipped cream cheese, soft warm chocolate cake, mashed potatoes, creamy peanut butter. Which sounds more like you? It's important to find out if you're crunchy or soft, sweet or salty, so that you can make sure that you are able to get some of these elements in your meal. Otherwise, you will tend to overeat and not be satisfied. I personally am a sweet and crunchy girl. My husband is a soft and sweet combination. There is no right or wrong category for you to be. Every person has a target of where they have their satiety center. Pretend that you have a target to hit, and in the bullseye is a smile. When you hit the bullseye, that makes you smile. When you enjoy the food that satisfies your soft or crunchy side or your salty or sweet side, you have hit your happy target. In my day, I usually have about half a cup of berries or a half a cup of pomegranate. Other salty, loving, thin eaters might have to have a half a cup of chips or half a cup of salted pistachios. One of the most important things that you're going to do is to learn to make sure that you're either at a level 1 or a level 0 on the hunger scale, or what I call hungry, hungry hippo level. What is hungry, hungry hippo? In my first edition of my book, I called it hamster hungry because I had a friend who went out of town, and when she came back, she realized her hamster had eaten all its babies because it ran out of food. But once they knew the origin of the story, people were like, ew, gross. I don't want to call it hamster hungry after that. So I changed it to hungry, hungry hippo. Let's look at the levels of hunger, which we will go over in more detail later. Level 0, starving, ravenous, grouchy, weak. All you can think about is what to eat and how to get it. Level 1, your stomach is growling and you feel completely on E. You can physically hear your stomach growl. 95% of people do hear their stomach growl when hungry, although there are about 5% that do not. Make sure that when at level 1, your stomach is growling because it's empty and not just digesting food from a previous meal. Everything sounds good to eat at this level. Level 2, hungry, starting to think about what sounds good to you. You are deciding what your body is craving. Level 3, you are not hungry, but not really full either, kind of neutral. Level 4, you are satisfied. This is where you want to end all of your meals. Level 5, stuffed, uncomfortably full. You don't want to let it get to that point. You should always eat to a 3.8 to 3.9 or a level 4. Even though I say in this book you're going to have one meal and a tasting, that can be breakfast/lunch or lunch/dinner for your tasting. One of the easiest meals to give up is breakfast. I'd like for you to try this when you're starting. Go the longest that you can in the day without eating breakfast, and then go as long as you can without eating lunch, and then have your first tasting. You may be thinking to yourself, I can't do that. Breakfast is too important. I can't handle not eating breakfast. This is a lie from the devil, saying that if we don't have a little something in the morning, we won't be able to have a great day, that you won't have the stamina for the day. If you're not hungry, you shouldn't be eating something. Now, as you get more advanced, I'd like you to change things up, and instead of eating lunch and dinner, you do breakfast and lunch. I will say, out of all the women I interviewed, almost all of them did a tasting around 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., and then they ate again around 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Remember, you're not taking one bite of food until you are sure that you have reached level 0 or 1. Some people get there at 11 o'clock, some people get there at 12 o'clock, but I will tell you the thinnest women I interview will have their coffee with a little bit of cream or black coffee, and they wait until around 2 o'clock to have their first tasting. If you can push it that long, go ahead and do it. If you can't, make sure your body is at a level 0 or 1 and go from there. One of the things my friend Catherine always says, who is Miss Virginia and has a perfect body, is that she loves the idea of being hungry. She gets excited to be hungry. Being hungry is not the end of the world. People will say, oh, I'm hungry. Great. You have to change your mindset to, it's the best thing ever that I'm hungry. My friend Kristen's husband kept nagging her about how important breakfast was. She has never had a weight problem and has always been thin. She started having a smoothie every morning because her husband was making his and kept saying, you should be having a smoothie in the morning. Even though she wasn't hungry, she decided to try it, and she gained 5 pounds in a month. First of all, the thing with smoothies is you have to be careful. Smoothies can have a lot of calories depending on what you put in them. One smoothie can have anywhere from 400 to 600 calories. The main thing for Kristen wasn't the calories. It was that she was now eating breakfast when she wasn't hungry. She wasn't doing intermittent fasting, and of course, she's going to gain that weight. She was now eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner and having a smoothie when she wasn't hungry because she listened to her husband. He said, well, you really should have something in the morning. And boom, she gained 5 pounds in less than 30 days. I have a friend who owns a farm, and she says that her farm workers started working around 4 a.m. and they end up eating around 9 a.m. Of course, they're hungry at 9 a.m. because they've already put in 5 hours of work. Let's say you wake up at 7 a.m. and maybe you work out. I work out every morning on an empty stomach and in a fasted state. So let's say you get to work at 9 a.m. and 5 hours later, that is around 1 o'clock, you're going to be hungry. So again, it depends on when you are starting your day. Now for me, I usually do get up around 4 or 5 a.m. So it depends, but sometimes I'll eat around noon and sometimes I will try to wait until 2 p.m. One of the other most important things for you to do that I'm terrible at, and I'm not even going to lie about it, is slow down when you eat. I even talk about this in my book, Waste Away, and it is such a struggle for me. I watch my thin eaters and how well they do with eating slowly. It turns out that taking our time to enjoy a meal actually does make it taste better. Our mouths are structured to allow us to get a strong whiff of our food's aroma, which enhances how we perceive its flavor, but only if we breathe slowly and quietly. We may miss out on this enhanced experience if we scarf down our meals. We have over 10,000 taste buds in our mouths. I love to take big bites, and I literally swallow before I even taste anything. I don't know what it is or why I do this, but I have trained myself to do it, so I literally have to untrain myself to not do this. This is going to be one of the most painful things you're going to do, but it really helps. I take a couple of bites of food and push it away, and then have a couple more bites and push it away. And in between eating, I might take a 5 to 10 minute break in between. Sometimes I say, I'm full, or sometimes I decide to eat a few more bites. How many people do you know that eat one pistachio and then put it down, then get another one? Most people will take tons at a time. One of the things that I can get out of control with is nuts. I would literally eat like a cup and a half of nuts, which is really way too many calories. And you don't need that much. One of my favorite foods is pistachios. I try to get the pistachios that are already shelled. I would literally take the whole mini package, open it up, and put half of it in my mouth, and then take the other half and eat it. Before I know it, I've finished the entire mini bag of pistachios. Now, I try to get the pistachios that I have to shell myself. I open one up, put it in my mouth, hoping that I find a salty one. I take my time and look for one that is easier to open, put one nut in my mouth, and slowly chew it to make sure I experience the taste and flavor. I have to remind myself all the time that there are no teeth in my stomach. I have to make my food literally melt and mush before I swallow. Now, there are 2 tricks I want to make sure that you do for eating slowly. Number 1 is to set a timer for 25 minutes for your meal. Once you try this, you're going to say, there is no way, unless you're already a slow eater, that I can do this. Setting a timer is the only way that I can do this. I learned this from my friend Catherine, and she will say, you can do it too. After about 10 minutes of eating, she literally takes a break from the food and pushes it away. It's so hysterical because I've gone out to eat with her several times, and every time the waiter comes by at least 3 or 4 times and says, are you finished eating that? And she says, no. The way she kind of pushes it away and sits back in her seat and puts her fork down so it looks like she's done, and then she'll eat a couple more bites, and then she'll push it away again, and the waiter will come by and will be like, okay, can I take that? And she's like, no, I'm not finished yet. Usually it's not until the 4th time, and it's been about 25 minutes or longer, they come by and she says, yes. The reason she says that she does this is because it takes about 25 minutes for your body to register that you're full and that you're satiated. Number 2 is to understand that being full is not the same as being satiated. This is so important. I shared the story of my friend Allie in my book, Waste Away. We went to Uno's for an event once. I never eat pizza, but I decided to get a small personal one. She decided on the grilled chicken as a healthier option. After she was done with the salad, she asked me if I was going to finish mine and then proceeded to eat the rest of my pizza. She really wanted the pizza, but she chose the salad because she thought it was healthier and she wasn't satisfied. I always try to pick a healthy option, but if I really want pizza, I might get a cauliflower crust pizza or something like that, so I will be satisfied. If I want Mexican food, I'm going to get Mexican food. I might pick a healthier option, but if I really want something, I'll have a couple of bites and be done with it. The other really important thing is that you don't drink during your meals. You want to drink outside of your meals and you want to keep yourselves hydrated, but you do not want to drink anything while you're eating a meal. This is going to be very difficult for you, but you are going to learn how to do this. Remember, those of you who have food issues, the devil will use these lies over and over. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It will make sure that you have enough energy for the day. I've always heard I should eat 3 meals a day, or I should clean my plate because there are starving kids in China. I should always save the best for last. I've heard that if you skip meals, that you will end up gaining more weight. If you don't eat enough food, your body will go into starvation mode. I need some sugar so that it'll give me a quick boost of energy. Do away with dieting. If you've read my prior books, Fasting to Freedom, Waste Away the Chantal Ray Way, and Freedom from Food Bible Study Workbook, you know I've been on quite a journey with my weight loss efforts. I used to say things like, I'm never eating again. I would be so happy if I were thinner. I'm going on a diet on Monday. I look at food and it goes to my hips. I wonder how she eats like that and stays so thin. How does she eat all that food and still have a perfect body? This will never work for me because I will just gain it right back. However, after I interviewed so many women, I realized that many of them never dieted and yet they always stayed the same size. But how did they do it? The principles outlined in this book will explain just that and so much more. First things first. Taste is very important to me and to all the thin women that I have interviewed. Fad diets will encourage you to eat foods that are bland and unenjoyable. Who wants to do that? Everyone wants to enjoy and savor the food they eat, regardless of your weight loss or maintenance goals. Based on my discussions with women who maintain their weight naturally, this is entirely possible to do. As I interviewed other thin women, I realized that they ate what I call a keto flex diet. Most of them couldn't put a name on it if you asked them, but the trends among them remain the same. They would eat mostly vegetables, moderate protein, and healthy fats. They kept servings of grain to a minimum and ate fruit sparingly. Instead of agonizing over their food choices, they became really good at listening to their bodies to determine what to eat. As you read this book, you will learn how to get in tune with your body and your individual needs so that you can finally break free from the cycle of dead-end dieting and enjoy food again. Additionally, I've included easy recipes for meals or tastings to help guide you along the way. 1 meal a day, OMAD. Of the women I interviewed, 10% of them ate 1 meal a day, or what I will refer to as OMAD for the rest of the book. Even though 70% ate 2 meals, for a lot of them, it was more like 1 meal and a tasting. You may think eating OMAD sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it actually can save you a ton of time and money. Once your body gets used to it, it's not nearly as hard as it sounds. When I am in maintenance mode, I like to eat in a 6-hour window, but when I've gained a few pounds and really want to lose weight, eating in a 1-hour eating window and eating OMAD is what really works for shedding extra pounds. OMAD is based on the principle of intermittent fasting. In my opinion, the reason intermittent fasting is so effective is because you are always in a fed state or fasted state. The only way you could eat something while your body would still think you are in a fasted state is if you ate straight fat. So if you ate just a tablespoon of ghee, your body would still think you are in a fasted state. As soon as your body starts digesting all the nutrients from whatever you ate, and for several hours after, depending on the food you ate, your body is basically creating insulin. When it creates insulin, the insulin signals your body to store the food it has taken in. Your body has a choice. It can take the food in as body fat or as glycogen. If your glycogen stores are totally full already because you are not hungry and have enough already stored up, then your body is not ever burning fat because it is in complete storage mode. If I drink MCT oil or coconut oil with my coffee, it can cause me to gain weight. My body can choose the fat I gave it or the fat on my hips. I rather my body eat the fat on my hips or stomach. What does that hour of OMAD look like for me? For a while, I started eating my OMAD at lunch, which I like doing, but I have so much more energy and I'm so much more productive during the day when I don't eat. Instead of eating something quick for lunch, I really enjoy that OMAD at dinner with my family. When I was doing the OMAD at lunch, I sat down at the dinner table one night to actually eat, and my son, who always sets the table, put just a glass of water in front of me. I said, "Hun, I'm eating dinner tonight." And he was so shocked because it had been so long since I had actually eaten dinner with them. So I switched my OMAD to dinner. The thing that works the best is for me to have a very small tasting around 2 o'clock and then dinner with my family. If I choose to eat OMAD for the day, the very first thing I do is usually eat some sort of high-fat food. I'm usually very hungry after 23 hours, and this helps calm my body down and ease into digestion. I might have a quarter of an avocado or some almonds, just a small amount of fat because it helps fill me up. It's almost like an appetizer. If I'm out to dinner, I will order chicken lettuce wraps or something similar so that I can be a little bit fuller. Then I eat my meal. If I'm going to have a dessert, I will wait a bit and have a little dessert. But let's be clear, even though I'm having dessert, I'm not eating a huge slice of cheesecake. Instead, I would eat some berries with whipped cream. This would satisfy the sweet tooth without causing pain, discomfort, or regret. If this is your first time trying OMAD, I don't suggest that you go from eating 3 or 4 meals a day to going into just 1 meal a day. It's great if you decide you're going to start intermittent fasting beginning with an 8-hour window, then 6-hour window, then 4-hour window, and work your way down. You must decide how and when you do best with your OMAD. Only you know how your body feels when you eat certain foods. Remember, most of the thin eaters do OMAD and a tasting, not just OMAD. It's up to you to determine when is the best time to consume your food for the day. Some people prefer to eat all of their daily required calories at breakfast time, some at lunch, and some at dinner. I only know one person who eats mostly breakfast and doesn't really eat lunch or dinner. There are many different viewpoints out there, and there's no absolute right answer to what is best. In my opinion, if you want to work with the body as much as possible, eating later in the day is preferred. I just feel like I'm so much more productive during the day with the number of things I can get done when I don't eat. Our bodies spend much of the day under the control of the sympathetic branch of our nervous system. This system controls the fight or flight response and helps us respond and react to stress. During the day, our bodies are naturally a little more stressed. As the day goes on and we transition into night, the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system kicks in. I talked about this earlier. This branch promotes rest and digestion. In the latter part of the day, our bodies are better suited for good digestion. I would say more than 90% of the people I know use dinner, or they will eat what they call LINNER, late lunch with a dinner, as their OMAD. They will have their tasting usually around 1 to 2 p.m. Eating later in the day also makes it convenient to enjoy your meals with friends. You can still participate in family dinners around the dining room table, go to a dinner party, or join friends out for an evening meal. Recently, I went to a fancy French lunch with friends to celebrate a birthday. We arrived at 1 p.m., but by the time we ate, it was 2 p.m. Because it was a big lunch in the middle of the day, That was the only meal for me and some of my friends for the whole day. If your meal satisfies your nutritional needs for the day and satisfies your hunger, there is no need to eat anything other than that meal. I cannot stress enough that the more interviews I do, the more people I find who are doing some kind of snack around 2 o'clock and then eating a dinner. But if they know they're going out for a big party, they might not have anything at all for lunch and save it all for that dinner. Then on the days that you have a bigger lunch and you weren't hungry for dinner, you could either sit and enjoy the company while having nothing to eat, or perhaps order a side of vegetables or a small salad so that you're not the only one at the table not eating. However, my friends and I have gone to lunch countless times where one or more of us doesn't eat because we weren't hungry. One of the things that really helps people wait until 2 o'clock to eat is having coffee with almond milk, coconut milk, MCT, oil, or cream. I always like to say that it's best if you can train your body to have black coffee, but most of the people I interview say they have coffee with cream in the morning, which allows them to wait until 2 o'clock to eat their first tasting. You can time your meals based on what works for you, not what others prefer. We eat a very early dinner in my family. I had a girl call me at 4:45 p.m. one time, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm finishing dinner." She was surprised and was like, "At 4:45? You can eat an early dinner, and you don't have to wait until 7 o'clock. I feel like the nice thing also is at the end of the day, I'm more relaxed, and my digestion in the latter part of the day is better. I can take my time. I'm not worried about work or other things, and I can slow down a little bit. Just remember that even if you decide to eat a big meal at lunchtime, there's no reason why you can't participate in family dinner or go to a dinner party, because you don't have to eat to enjoy the experience. That is the biggest thing. People who are thin feel no pressure to eat just because they're at dinner or a function. A lot of times I'll go to lunch meetings or parties and people will say, "Oh, eat something small." But I'll sit there and not eat. You must get out of your mind that you have to eat just because you've been invited to an event or party. Eating has nothing to do with enjoying someone's company. Nothing. In fact, not eating actually makes the time more meaningful because you aren't shoving food in your face and you're able to talk more. When you're eating one full meal, eat whatever you want. However, when I watch the thin eaters eat, they maybe had a small servings of grain or a small servings of fruit. It's ideal to have vegetables and a protein as the major components of that meal, but eat what you want, eat what you're craving. If you want steak, eat a steak. If you want chicken, eat chicken. Whatever it is that your body craves at the time, go for it. Let me tell you some reasons why I love doing OMAD and a tasting lifestyle. It saves you money. You will actually save money. If I'm not saving money, it's because I'm eating really healthy, clean foods for that one meal. I might pick up something from somewhere and it might be a $30 meal. Some people spend $10 on breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time, but I choose to spend $30 collectively on one single meal and get way better food. You can either save money and eat a $10 meal or get something more expensive and of higher quality. It improves digestion. When you fast for so long, it gives all your systems a way to rest. It can give your pancreas, gallbladder, and other organs a rest. It can really help people who have IBS and like issues. It helps you stop thinking about food. The weird thing is, when I put in my mind that I'm not eating for the whole day, I literally do not think about food. I'm able to focus on other things. You might think that if you're only eating once a day, you're going to be ravenous. But when your body transitions from a sugar burning mode to a fat burning mode, you are less hungry. If you're ravenous, that is why a tasting is so important. It helps you not to be crazy hungry. It increases energy. I'm telling you, when I eat OMAD, I just feel lighter and bubblier. The amount I can accomplish is just so much more when food isn't weighing me down. Another reason I like eating dinner instead of lunch is that I avoid the 3 o'clock slump. People are generally finishing their lunch around 1 or 2 o'clock, and that is when they start getting tired and sluggish and their blood sugar starts dropping. But I avoid that when I eat OMAD at dinner. It decreases inflammation. I have a lot of issues with joint pain and inflammation. My knees swell up and my joints hurt. But when I'm doing OMAD and a tasting, really making sure the food is high quality for that one meal, it really helps with these issues. It saves calories. I don't count calories, but I know just from the amount of food that I'm eating that I don't eat as many calories in one meal as I would be eating in 3 meals a day. Some days when I'm eating just one meal, I eat more than other days, which is natural. But often, because I haven't eaten all day, I get full really quickly, so my portion sizes are smaller. If you're listening to your hunger and your satiety signals when eating OMAD, you're going to eat less food. In the beginning, because they are waiting all day to eat, some people overeat. You must make sure you are still eating to the point right before you're full and not passing that point. If you're interested in going on an extended fast, then you need to get my book, Fasting to Freedom. The guidance in that book is different than if you're just going to do OMAD because the fasting period is longer. Most experts agree that as for having coffee or tea during your fast, you should be just fine. Some experts say if you drink coffee with less than 50 calories, then your body will remain in the fasted state. So your coffee with a splash of milk or cream is just fine. Others will say absolutely not. I also personally believe caffeine also has a stronger effect when ingested on an empty stomach, so it does a better job of helping you to battle fatigue and brain fog. This makes increased concentration another perk of intermittent fasting with coffee. Technically, you're not fasting if you add any of these to your coffee because they all contain calories. However, fats themselves won't influence your insulin or blood sugar levels, so some experts say that this is the most recommended choice if you're looking to boost your insulin sensitivity, if you have prediabetes or diabetes. While you may have heard recommendations for bulletproof coffee made by adding butter, coconut oil, and MCT oil to coffee, be aware that it contains over 230 calories in a 16-ounce serving made with a tablespoon of each fat. So you are adding tons of fat and calories. List of things you can have when fasting with OMAD. Great. Water, black coffee, tea unflavored with no added flavors or sweeteners, herbal tea unflavored and not fruity, unflavored sparkling water like San Pellegrino, Perrier, and LaCroix. Crutch drinks, if you absolutely need a crutch. However, try to have no oil or cream at all. MCT, medium chain triglycerides oil, coconut oil, ghee, heavy cream, if not allergic to dairy. These are all crutch drink options to add to your coffee if you need to have a creamer. I have seen some people lose tons of weight by adding these to their coffee. It also stumps a lot of people in their weight loss. This is a crutch drink, and ultimately, you want to get off the crutches. Also, crutch items, but okay. Organic stevia, regular creamer, unsweetened, coconut milk, almond milk to make it home. See my video at chantelrayway.com/recipes. Homemade bone broth, I use this for extended fasting. But if you're just fasting for 23 hours, you should be fine. If you need to use this as a crutch in the very beginning, that's okay, but only for a couple of days to help you. You shouldn't need it continuously, and the max have 1 cup. Absolutely not. Artificial sweeteners, saccharin, NutraSweet, aspartame. The graph below reveals that 70% of the people I interviewed felt true hunger and ate twice a day. What is a tasting? As I mentioned, perpetually thin women choose to have some sort of snack during their eating window, which usually is no more than about 200 to 400 calories. And again, they don't count those calories. They just choose things that satisfy without being equal to a meal. So what would a tasting like that consist of? Maybe a leftover from yesterday's meal. Did you put a small leftover in the fridge that would make a good tasting? A quote tasting is the equivalent of a snack. The size of the tasting depends on the individual. Some of the people who are really thin might have a calorie tasting that would amount to 150 to 250 calories. This could be a protein bar or a handful of almonds or vegetables and hummus. The tasting is most of the time whatever their body is craving. For example, my friend Lori may have a healthy Starbucks protein bar because it's quick and easy to eat on the run. My friend Kelly, however, will have raw veggies and a little bit of hummus with 1 slice of turkey. Some examples of tastings you can try are carrot chips with honey mustard and feta cheese, half an apple and 2 pieces of turkey. Leftover salad from the night before. Basic salad with feta cheese and a honey mustard dressing with 2 slices of deli turkey. Red peppers and celery with half a cup of strawberries or half a cup of cantaloupe. 1 slice of cauliflower pizza. Let's talk about what I refer to as a hunger snack in my book, Waste Away. As I interviewed different women, almost all of them had a solution for curbing their appetites before it was time to eat. I asked, when you're hungry, what do you do to keep yourself from binging and keep yourself from getting so ravenously hungry? All of them said they either use a hunger drink or a hunger snack. One of the things that my mom and aunt used to say to me all the time was, slow down. I would get myself to the point that I was so hungry that once I would eat, I would inhale. If you look at my mom's purse at any given time, she always has snacks in her bag, raw or dry roasted almonds with no oil, walnuts or cashews. And usually when you are in the car with her, within 30 minutes to an hour before lunch, she pulls out of her bag of walnuts and she has each kind of snack in a different little Ziploc bag. She has almonds in one bag, walnuts in another bag, and she literally pulls out each bag and says, who wants walnuts? Who wants almonds? She almost sounds like the people at the baseball game selling the snack in the stands, or the people at the carnival who say peanuts, soda, popcorn. I would say a good 50% of the people I interviewed carried some sort of hunger snack with them at all times. Nuts, fruit, or dried fiber cereal are the top things that people would say they carry with them. It varied, but nuts were the number one thing that people carried. This is likely because they're high in fat and provide quick satiety. Kim carries Cracklin' Oat brand cereal with her at all times in a little snack baggie or some kind of fruit. Some might bring a little bag of carrots, but they almost always would eat some sort of snack about 30 minutes to an hour before they were going to eat, so they wouldn't be ravenously hungry. Hunger snacks can be consumed inside of your eating window. They're meant to be high protein, high fat snacks that keep you from feeling ravenous. The best hunger snack you can pick are nuts like cashews or almonds. If you can't find something high in fat, then look for a high fiber food. Good options are an apple with peanut butter, half an avocado, a pickle, or an egg. Don't make your hunger snack a processed high-carb food. 2 tastings and a meal. Sometimes one tasting isn't enough to get you through the day, so you might add another one to help you as you near your OMAD. A lot of people lean towards this model in the winter months when temperatures drop and our activity levels decrease. Our bodies tend to crave more food in the winter to deal with the dip in temperature, while the opposite happens in the summer. Hello, bikini season. When the heat rises outside, most people naturally resort to a small taste of something, perhaps some fruit or nuts, and one substantial meal a day. This allows them to be focused and satiated, but not overly full. This way of eating is really about making the choices that work for you, but not obsessing over the details. If you wake up and crave a hearty breakfast, that caloric load should be able to sustain you for much of the day, with a grazing of food here and there. Most of my friends, however, prefer to jumpstart their day with a cup of coffee and have a larger meal later in the day when they've used up their energy stores. Plus, as I'm sure you can tell, our prime time is dinner. I've enjoyed hundreds of dinners with these women and know that this is the time that we can really all enjoy our food and perhaps a fun-sized treat for dinner. Intermittent fasting. If you've read my prior books, Fasting to Freedom, Waste Away the Chantel Ray Way, and Freedom from Food Bible Study Workbook, you know that I promote intermittent fasting as not only the best way to lose unwanted weight, but also as the best way to keep it off for good and stay healthy. I first heard about intermittent fasting from my trainer, Chris Sykes. He lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks, and we had a mutual friend who lost 30 pounds in 60 days. Chris explained to me that I could eat whatever I wanted. All I had to do was confine myself to an 8-hour eating window. I thought that didn't sound too hard, as I was already used to eating 9 hours a day, even though I didn't know it at the time. After 2 weeks of trying the 8-hour eating window, I didn't lose any weight. I realized that cutting my eating window down by 1 hour wasn't having an effect on me. So I decided to reduce my eating window to 6 hours. By the 3rd week, I lost 6 pounds in total. Let's begin with a refresher on intermittent fasting from my book, Waste Away the Chantel Ray Way. Intermittent fasting is a cycle of eating where you select what is called an eating window of time to eat and then fast for the rest. The most common window is called 16-8. You fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window. This doesn't mean that you eat for the entire 8 hours. Rather, you continue to make conscious food choices, but once the window closes, you're done for the day. In my research, I interviewed over 1,000 thin people, and most of them did not have a specific hour of the day that they ate. Example, lunch at 12, dinner at 6. They all ate naturally based on when they were actually hungry. I would ask someone, what do you eat and what time do you eat? 9 times out of 10, they would say, I'm just not a big breakfast person. I never eat breakfast, so I start eating around 1 o'clock, and then I usually eat dinner around 5:30. I would pretty much finish around 6 p.m. I would ask another person, and she would say, I start eating a snack around 2, and I'll have something small, and then I'll have dinner around 6:30 p.m. After interviewing them more in depth, I realized that all of them were eating one medium-sized meal and a snack or tasting. For example, my friend Laura owns a marketing company and is always on the run. When I asked her, what did you eat yesterday? She remarked that she had a big lunch and said, I was full, so I didn't eat anything the rest of the day. This is a perfect example of how I would have watched her eat that big meal in the past. I would have said, see, she can eat whatever she wants and still stay so thin. But before, I didn't realize that's all she ate the whole day. I would eat exactly what she ate, but then go home and eat dinner and be like, why am I not thin? I ate exactly what she did, when in reality, I had eaten so much more. You open your eating window when you consume your very first meal, snack, or caloric drink of the day. You close your eating window after you consume your very last calorie. When you're fasting, you can only drink water, coffee, or unsweetened tea. There is no magic number of hours that every person should use for their eating window. 8 hours works great for some, and 6 hours is better for others. Be mindful, regardless if you have an 8-hour or 6-hour eating window, that you don't spend it consuming as many calories as you can by filling up on unhealthy food. You still have to obey the rules of hunger and eating healthy. The length of your eating window should be what works best for you with consideration to the portion sizes you eat. The basis of this lifestyle is that you don't restrict what you eat, but when you eat. You can eat what you like when you're physically hungry, as long as you eat only in your eating window and follow the FIRE's principles that were introduced in Waste Away. F, fast on a regular basis. I, identify true hunger. R, reduce sugar and white simple carbohydrates. E, enjoy real food without deprivation. S, stop before you're full. These principles work together with intermittent fasting. If you think you can lose weight by eating nonstop for 8 hours straight, then you're sadly mistaken. FIRES will help you to never overeat and to eat only when you're truly hungry. If your eating window is 8 hours long, then that means you're fasting for 16 hours. If you're eating for 6 hours, then you're fasting for 18. This is also called the clock approach, as seen in the image below. When using the clock approach, I recommend starting with an 8-hour window while following the FIRE's principles. If you don't see yourself losing weight, start reducing your window. As you can see from the chart, if I'm doing the 20-hour fast, then I'm only eating from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., or 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm fasting the rest of the time. With the 6-hour window, I'm eating from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. and again fasting the rest of the time. The beauty of this approach is that you get to choose the window of when you want to eat that works with your schedule. I have tons of friends who like to eat at night and some who like to eat during the day like me. The bottom line is the fewer hours you eat, the more weight you melt away. My eating window is determined by how much weight I want to lose and the sizes of my meals. This is why the idea of one meal and a tasting is so perfect for me. The number of pounds I lose is directly related to the size of my meals and the hours I eat. The reason the number of hours you fast and eat has such a dramatic effect on your weight loss is because how your body fuels itself. Your body has 2 options for fuel: glucose, sugar, from the food you recently ate, or fat that's already stored in your body. Your body will always burn sugar first. If there's so much sugar present that your body never needs to burn fat, you won't lose weight because fat burning is what results in weight loss. To help you understand what I'm talking about, imagine you have cash in your pocket and cash in the bank. You're not going to drive all the way to the bank to withdraw money if you have some already in your pocket. You're going to use up everything in your pocket first before you ever touch what's in the bank. That's how your body works with sugar, pocket money, and fat, money in the bank. After 18 to 24 hours of fasting, your body has burned up all of the sugar and starts attacking the fat. That's what you want. There are new studies every day that continue to prove the benefits of intermittent fasting. However, the main reason it's so effective for losing weight has everything to do with insulin. We're not going to get too scientific here, and I encourage you to do your own research. But I want you to know that if you're someone who deals with diabetic issues, this plan can still work for you. I'm someone who at my highest weight was pre-diabetic, and I still have ongoing blood sugar issues. However, intermittent fasting has greatly impacted my blood sugar to the positive. If you have the same health issues I do, then you'll fit right in. Of course, consult your physician before starting a new dietary plan. I check my blood sugar on a regular basis, and I believe that's an important practice to begin. I've learned a lot about insulin and its role in regulating your body's glucose. When you eat, your blood sugar is available to either be burned as energy or stored as fat. In order to lose weight, you have to lower your insulin levels so that your body can access your stored fat effectively. The very act of eating, regardless of what you're eating, causes insulin to be released from your body. Fasting, on the other hand, lowers insulin, which contributes to weight loss. Anytime insulin increases, it can inhibit fat breakdown, which is what you need for fat loss. Like I said before, anytime you eat, your insulin increases. How much it increases depends on several factors, like the food taken in and the individual person eating it. But ultimately, fasting has a positive impact on fat loss. Fasting, it works. There are benefits to intermittent fasting that I haven't found with any other diet I've tried. First, I believe intermittent fasting is a solution for the willpower factor. I think we all have a limit to our willpower. We can get excited about a diet for a little while, but when we want a brownie and the diet says we can't, most times we end up failing. We move on to the next diet since the last one was, quote, too hard, and when that one fails, we move on to another one. We blame the diets, but it's really our inability to stick with them that's the problem. But that's okay. Trying to live by a diet is unrealistic and unsustainable. Diets that restrict food get harder the longer you do them, while intermittent fasting is the only plan that I believe gets easier with time. It doesn't put pressure on your willpower because you're still allowed to eat what you want. You're simply changing the time frame when you eat. The second major benefit is that I'm finally eating less. I'm at the point where I'm eating only one meal and a tasting just about every day, and they're small meals at that. See, my struggles with eating are just like my troubles with skiing. I do great while I'm in motion, but I'm atrocious at stopping. They had to stamp a big red X on my ticket and threaten to kick me off the slope if I didn't stop running into people. Stopping once I start eating is just as real a challenge for me. Intermittent fasting has helped me control my eating. I literally had a snacking addiction to the point where my family made up a song to tease me. It's called All I Do Is Snack, to the tune of All I Do Is Win by DJ Khaled. Yes, it was that bad. Thankfully, my snacking addiction is broken now, and you won't find me snacking all day anymore. Finally, when it comes to my health, my hormones feel regulated, my immune system is stronger, and I have more mental clarity. There are so many different cleanses out there, but I believe fasting is God's way of doing it. It's like a self-cleansing process. Don't waste your money on cleanses when you can just fast. Studies show that in addition to insulin regulation and burning of fat stores, your immune system also begins to repair itself after just 24 hours of fasting. Fasting works. The fed state versus the fasted state. At any given time, your body is in one of two states, the fed state or the fasted state. Your body behaves very differently in both states. In the fed state, your body is actively digesting food and absorbing nutrients. How long it lasts depends on how long it takes for your body to digest food and what type of foods you are digesting. One of the factors that impact your digestion is the kind of foods you eat. Some foods digest faster than others, and there's even a topic called food combining that explains how different foods digest better or worse when they're eaten together. I want to discuss food combining for just a minute because I did a popular food combining diet years ago. It made me crazy. The diet centered around eliminating, separating, or combining all kinds of different foods. I learned the hard way that it made me focus too much on what I was eating instead of how much I was eating. However, it wasn't all bad because I did learn a few things about my digestion. I learned that if I eat smaller portions, my body can digest most combinations of food. If I'm ravenously hungry and need a little more, protein and vegetables digest together well for me. The other state, the fasted state, technically begins when your body has finished digesting food. However, that's hard to track. So for the purposes of this book, we're doing a tweaked version of the fasted state. When I mention being in a fasted state, I'm simply referring to the period of time after you've closed your eating window. It's not technically accurate, but it's easier to track and it will work for the plan we're doing. Getting to a truly fasted state is something everyone should experience. I believe that if you're constantly feeding your body and making it digest food pretty much 24/7, you're, quote, hogging up all of its time, so to speak. Your body never has a chance to renew itself. Fasting gives your body that opportunity, and there's ongoing research to suggest intermittent fasting could help you live longer. Fasting for 24 hours twice a week can deliver massive weight loss while also having a positive impact on your immune system. The eating window. Pick an eating window and stay in it. An eating window is a specific period of time in which all your caloric food and beverages can be consumed. Your eating window opens as soon as you take your first bite, sip, or food of the day. The eating window closes after you've taken your last bite, sip of food for the day. If that's 6 hours after your first meal, then that was a 6-hour eating window. Let's be clear. Just because you have an eating window does not mean you should be eating 2 huge meals or thousands of calories because that would defeat the purpose. You can do a meal and a tasting. If I have a 4-hour window, it's not like I'm just sitting here for 4 hours and just eating and eating for 4 straight hours. We still want to make sure that we're hungry and that we're eating when our stomach growls, not simply because there's time in our eating window. I want to make sure that I'm eating only when my body is physically hungry and not for any other reason. Thin eaters never look at the clock and say, I only eat in a 6-hour eating window. It's 6:01 p.m. I can't eat anything else. Once you start obsessing, you are no longer an intuitively thin person. What you want to avoid is eating more than your body needs. No matter how long your eating window is, you can't overeat. If you eat from 12 to 6 p.m., a 6-hour window, but you consume a huge lunch, a snack in the middle, and a huge dinner, then you're still eating too much. I learned quickly that if you overeat, you still won't lose weight no matter how short your window is. All of these FIRES components must work together for you to see success. The wonderful thing about fasting is that your body learns to expect food at a certain time of day. Around 11 or 12 o'clock, my stomach growls because it's used to eating around that time. Because of this, I'm not constantly thinking about food, and that's one of the major goals of the Chantel Ray Way. Once my eating window is closed, it's closed. At that point, I've mentally shut down from thinking about food, and it's so peaceful. If you've never experienced this before, it may sound unbelievable, but trust me when I say it's a much better way to live. I feel much more productive now that I'm not constantly thinking about food. I get so much more done, and I don't even want to start eating because once I do, I know I'm going to slow down. There's a myth that you get tired if you don't eat, but the opposite happens. I'm not at all tired when I fast. I have more energy when I don't eat than when I have frequent meals all day. I think it's because the body takes so much energy to digest food. When I fast, I'm not digesting food all day long. The flexibility of the eating window. Different people like to do different things when it comes to the time frame of the eating window. Some prefer to start eating in the morning and the others in the afternoon. I prefer to fast in the mornings, and so I get pushback from the people who insist on telling me that skipping breakfast is so bad for me. I haven't seen any negative consequences yet. As an additional note, I do a lot of 4-hour windows when I really want to jumpstart my weight loss after I've hit a plateau. If you do this, don't overdo it or you'll struggle to keep it up and be tempted to binge. I've been asked so many times about the perfect eating window, and I must tell you there is no magic number of hours that every person should use for their eating window. The length of your eating window should be what works for you with consideration of the portion sizes you eat. What is best for your own schedule, your own family life, or work routines? Maybe it's very easy for you to skip breakfast because you have long days that start in a mad early morning rush and hit your hunger level midday. So start your eating window around 2 p.m. and stop eating by 6, 7, or 8 p.m., depending on if you're eating in a 6-hour or 8-hour window to start. Beginners to intermittent fasting may need to start with a longer window until they get used to eating one meal a day and a tasting. Break your habits, but give yourself plenty of grace while you're at it. Once you feel better, you'll love eating this way and you can adjust accordingly. Some people need one-on-one coaching to be held accountable, which I find is the best way to really stay on track. The second best way to hold yourself accountable is to announce what you're doing with your eating window and what you're putting in your body. That way your friends and colleagues can act as your accountability partners if you should graze outside of your designated eating window. When I first started and was doing an 8-hour eating window, I did not lose weight. When I reduced it to 6 hours, I lost my initial 30 pounds, but then I got stuck and had to switch it up. Now, if I want to maintain my current weight, I have to eat in a 4-hour window and add 1 or 2 24-hour fasts per week. For me, eating in a 4-hour window helps me stay at my own ultimate happy weight. Now, with the 4-hour window, again, I like to tell people that they can eat what they want without depriving themselves, but at the same time, they have to know how they feel. You have to find your groove and where the needle moves on your weight loss. For me, a 4-hour window is plenty of time for me to get the calories that I need while enjoying lots of nutritious, delicious food. The 4-hour window also gives me lots of time to be able to fast with 20 hours remaining in the day. Additionally, it's important to choose what you open your eating window with. Personally, opening up my window with lots of carbs is just going to make me extraordinarily tired because my body has to work extra hard to process the carbohydrates after not having to digest much for the past 20 hours. A better option might be a hard-boiled egg or some nuts or an avocado, something that has some healthy fat in it. The goal is to ease your body into digestion, not jumpstart it. Over the years, I've had to get to know my own body to understand how intermittent fasting works best for me, and you have to figure out what works best for you. You have to ask yourself what foods serve you and what foods do not serve you. I cannot eat a lot of beans, and I try to stay away from all refined sugar. I did a food sensitivity test, and it said that egg whites don't work well for me, so I will eat the egg yolk instead, but that works for me. What works for you? The one thing that I have seen from my friends when they want to lose, say, 10 pounds quickly is to eat one meal a day and doing a 22-hour fast. They're only eating in a 2-hour window. They're just eating one meal a day, and they might have a little snack before that and maybe add in a walk 5 days a week or some low-key exercise like that. It's not easy, but we're talking about taking on difficult things for great end results, right? And it's only temporary to get back to a place of maintenance. As I've interviewed more and more thin women, the evidence has just continued to support the pattern of how thin women eat. They don't restrict what they eat, but pay attention to when they eat. They basically eat what I call a meal and a tasting. That said, of course, no one can eat only chocolate for 4 hours in a day and see the results they want. It's important to be reasonable and balanced. This is the formula that works best for me now. I eat 2 times a day, one medium to large meal consisting of whatever I want, depending on my hunger, and my next meal is just a tasting of about 9 bites. I might eat 3 bites of 3 different things. It's actually more of a snack than a meal. What can I eat while I'm fasting? While you're fasting, you are not to have any food whatsoever. The only things you can drink are liquids that don't have any calories. You can have black coffee, tea, water, and unflavored sparkling water. Don't have any caloric drinks like diet soda or tea with stevia. You also can't pop mints, chew sugared gum, take cream in your coffee, or have hard candy. There is no sugar whatsoever allowed on your fast. Whenever you have sugar, truthfully, Whenever you eat anything at all, your insulin spikes. Spiking your insulin during your fast will lock away your fat stores, and that's the opposite of what you want to happen. Accessing and burning that stored fat is a primary goal of fasting. Besides, if you're constantly eating little things during your fast, you're going to counteract your ability to hear your body telling you when it's actually hungry. It may sound obvious, but when you're fasting, you're not eating. No exceptions. Some diet books talk about free foods, foods that have 0 calories, as exceptions to the rule. Free foods can include diet jello, pickles, carrots, plain celery, and more. Intermittent fasting, however, doesn't allow for free foods. This is to truly allow your body a break from having to work to digest anything, offering it an opportunity to seek energy from what you've already had in your fat and glycogen stores. As I've interviewed thousands of women, I've learned that they aren't counting calories. They aren't counting and measuring how many ketones they have. They aren't doing a ketone breathalyzer. They're not checking urine strips. They're just choosing that if they want carbs, to enjoy them in moderation and focus on eating lots of vegetables and lean proteins. It is really that simple. Load your plate with lots of vegetables, have a moderate serving of protein, and reduce your intake of carbs. What is Keto Flex? This book is keto-ish, but is a flexible approach to a way of eating that will keep you satisfied while you lose weight and increase energy. Finding true keto-friendly recipes that taste great and feel fresh can be hard. Just ask anyone who is on the keto diet or cooking for someone who is. It's a seriously restrictive eating plan that cuts out a lot of staples, including some highly nutrient-dense fruits. But that doesn't mean you have to subsist on plates full of bacon alone. Additionally, there are options for healthy fruits and natural sugars. What will you eat while intermittent fasting? Crazy delicious food to the point of satiety. You will not be hungry. One of the things that people get very confused about is the word keto. When you think of the word, most people associate it with a ketogenic diet because the goal is to get the body to go into ketosis. Ketosis is a state where your body uses ketone bodies where food or carbohydrates are low as a survival mechanism. The body will metabolize fat quickly and make ketones to save your brain so your brain can use one of two things: glucose or sugar or ketones. When you eat fewer carbs, your body eventually burns through its glycogen or sugar stores and starts using fat ketones. Your metabolism still needs energy to power your body and brain, so it switches to burning fat for fuel. That fat comes from your body fat or fat in the food you eat. Ketosis has tons of benefits like more brain power, fewer cravings, lasting energy, and weight management. You can get into ketosis by 2 different ways, either by intermittent fasting or by eating a ketogenic diet. People don't realize that they can get into ketosis by either way. Essentially, ketosis forces the body to use fat stores as its primary source of energy, which is referred to as fat adaptation. Some people will say it takes anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to become fat adapted, while some people can do it in a week. To accomplish this, people limit their carbohydrate consumption to under 50 grams per day while monitoring their protein intake. This can be overwhelming for some people, which is why I like to adopt what I call a keto flex or keto-ish approach to intermittent fasting. For me, carbs and fruit are my biggest weakness, and I've had to learn how to scale back. 90% of what you eat consists of vegetables, protein, and healthy fat. Then the other 10% is usually made up of healthy grains, fruit, or indulgences. A keto flex or keto-ish day would be somewhere between 60 to 80 grams of carbs combined with intermittent fasting. Here's an example of all the things you could eat to total 60 grams. Carbohydrates: a half a cup of rice, 25 carbs, a half a cup of diced potatoes, 13 carbs, a cup of broccoli, 6 carbs, a cup of cauliflower, 5 carbs, and a half a cup of berries, 11 carbs. Of course, this is in addition to filling up on meats and fats. Dirty keto is also called lazy keto, as it allows for highly processed and packaged foods. It's popular among individuals who want to achieve ketosis without spending a lot of time prepping clean keto meals. I'm 100% against dirty keto. Without being consciously aware of what they're doing, the women I interviewed were eating a keto flex or keto-ish lifestyle naturally. If you ask them, they wouldn't be able to put a name to it. They'd say, "That's just what I do." After watching them day after day, I've concluded that this is naturally how they eat. I was shocked how little and how infrequently my thin friends ate fruit. They would eat a quarter of a peach or 3 strawberries or a quarter cup of blueberries. Go to chantelrayway.com to find out more details on Keto Flex /keto-ish lifestyle. Better ROI, good investments, and decadent meals. As you know, I'm in real estate, and one of the things that people always ask me is whether or not a rental property has a good ROI or return on investment. Typically, we refer to something called the 1% rule to determine if the potential rental income can meet or exceed the monthly mortgage on a property. However, the 1% rule doesn't account for things like closing costs, repairs, maintenance, insurance, or property taxes. An easy way to calculate these costs is to multiply the cost of the property by 1%. So, if someone buys a property for $100,000 and you multiply that by 1%, then you should be able to get $1,000 a month for rent. Let's say you bought the property for $200,000. If you multiply $200,000 times 1%, that's $2,000. It's often difficult to find properties that will yield a good ROI, but not impossible. Just like we look at real estate as an investment, we should look at food the same way. The type of food I eat is an investment in my body, and I want to be sure I'm getting the best ROI on what I buy and consume. As I interviewed my friends, they always asked themselves whether or not what they were eating was a good investment. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say I was craving pizza. I could order a pizza that had a regular crust with gluten and a high amount of carbs. But what if I spent the extra money for cauliflower crust? Or better yet, what if I made the pizza at home so I could be sure the ingredients were healthy and devoid of extra calories and chemicals? My investment in the pizza would be a bit higher financially and may require a bit more of my time, but the return would yield greater results than just ordering a regular pizza. For me, eating a cauliflower pizza would be just as good as eating the regular pizza because I love cauliflower crust pizza, as long as it's super crispy. So why wouldn't I choose that over the more calorie indulgent choice? What is the better ROI? If the healthier option is just as good or almost as good, why not? My friend Kim says, anytime I eat chicken, I don't want it fried. For example, when I go to Chick-fil-A, I always get the grilled chicken because I like it almost as much. The difference is so negligible that it doesn't justify eating something fried. One of the things that I never eat is artificially sweetened, fat-free, or some other fake version of real food. A quick Google search will show you that artificial sweeteners can actually make you crave sweets even more. Instead, I will use monk fruit or stevia to sweeten something. Another thing that I would never eat is fake meat products, such as soy or a veggie burger that wasn't homemade. These foods are literally filled with chemicals and are so processed that I would never touch that, even if it was fewer calories. I love to have a real grass-fed burger once in a while, which is ultimately a much better investment due to the quality of meat. If meat isn't your thing, you could make your own veggie burger that is juicy and totally plant-based. You could top it with caramelized onions, roasted cauliflower, broccoli, grilled zucchini, blanched asparagus, sauteed red peppers, roasted sweet potatoes. The list is endless. Now, that is the kind of veggie burger I would eat. I would have to ask myself if that would be the same ROI. For some people, that veggie burger would be the same ROI, while for other people, it wouldn't. What is the best ROI for you? Another question I asked one of my thin friends is, how do you decide whether you eat one meal or whether you eat a meal and a tasting for the day? They typically respond that they ask themselves a series of simple questions. How hungry am I today? If I skip a meal, will I be fine? Or am I going to maybe overeat on the next meal because I'm too hungry? Am I going to dinner later? Should I have a small tasting or skip lunch? Kim is a great example of this. As a busy mother of 2 teenagers, she often spends her mornings getting her kids ready for school. She has coffee every day when she wakes up, a smoothie or a smoothie bowl around 11 to 1 p.m., and later that evening she will have dinner. Almost all the women eat their quote meal at night, and their tasting is between 12 to 2 p.m. For dinner last night, she had tuna bites and a bowl of tomato basil soup. She always has some kind of protein and veggies. But Kim loves ice cream. If I'm going to eat ice cream, I want to get Ben & Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs, something real. I'm not going to eat light ice cream. I would portion it out and maybe put 1 scoop of ice cream in a small dish. The whole container is not a serving. She further elaborates on her eating habits. If I'm eating out, I always have food left on my plate. I am not part of the Clean Your Plate Club. At home, I only give myself a small portion, so I might eat everything on my plate because I didn't put much on it to begin with. Sometimes when I go out to eat, I won't even order anything. I'll pick off the plates of my family members. Is it worth it? One of the things that I hear my thin friends say is that the majority of what they eat is moderate protein, lots of veggies, and healthy fats. However, they sprinkle their day with something that is decadent. Another way to say, is it worth it, is what is the wise choice that will satisfy me? For my friend Kristen, she doesn't care for dessert that much. And if she had her choice, she'd rather have 1 glass of wine and nachos as an appetizer. Kristen is obsessed with nachos, but will not eat them if they aren't to her standards. If she takes a bite and they aren't very good, she'll order something completely different, like grilled tuna bites instead. In her mind, why waste the carbs and calories if the nachos aren't amazing? And despite her love for nachos, she only has them once a week. My friend Andrea, however, loves French fries, but she is very particular about how they should be prepared. She likes them skinny and crispy. If they are fat and wide, she won't even touch them because it doesn't check the box of an enjoyable indulgence. It's not worth the caloric intake. Like Kristen, though she loves French fries, she doesn't have them every day. Not because she wouldn't love to indulge in them, but because she knows they are an indulgence, not a regular staple of her diet. How much is a particular food worth to you? Maybe it's worth it for you to indulge in a piece of cheesecake every now and then. Go for it. But eating cheesecake every day may not be worth it once the effects of sugar, carbs, and caloric load start to impact your waistline and overall health. How am I going to feel when I eat this? Lean meat, lots of vegetables, and healthy fats, and sometimes indulging in a dessert allows you not to feel deprived while taking control of your eating. I asked my friend Andrea about how she decides what she is going to eat. The number one question she asks herself is, how is this going to make me feel? Personally, I like how I feel when I eat lots of cooked vegetables, but when I eat raw vegetables, I don't feel as good. Therefore, I tend to eat more cooked vegetables because of how they make me feel. When I eat a banana, I will eat a quarter of a banana. Not because I have anything against bananas, I just know that I won't feel as good if I eat the whole thing. Thin eaters report that they hate the feeling of overeating. It makes them tired, sluggish, and uncomfortable. They regret it when they eat too much and feel it right away. They don't diet. They just follow an eating lifestyle that feels perfectly natural to them. As you practice OMAD and a tasting, you'll find yourself agreeing. Eating too much is ridiculous. One thing I want every reader to understand is that as long as you eat in your eating window, you can't make a mistake no matter what you eat. These days, I'll have half a donut and won't feel guilty about it one bit. Why? Because I don't eat donuts every day. The problem with dieting is people don't want to control how much they eat, so they make their food behave. They overeat on things like carrots or celery and say that because it's healthy food, it doesn't count. That's not what the Bible says at all. The Bible says to put a knife to your throat if you're being gluttonous. Proverbs 23:2, period. The end. You have to practice self-control. If I ask a thin eater or someone who is very healthy what she ate yesterday, she may say a slice of pizza and half of a brownie for lunch and a half of a steak with non-starchy vegetables for dinner. In my head, because she's drop dead gorgeous and super skinny, I'll say to myself, see how skinny she is and she ate a brownie and pizza? Then I will talk myself into eating like that, and I can eat it, but only if it's gluten-free. Otherwise, I'll feel awful. My body can't process gluten because of autoimmune issues. My body cannot handle it, but hers can. If I eat gluten, my joints hurt, I can't walk, my head gets inflamed with the psoriasis, and chunks of skin fall off. And I get massively constipated and exhausted. If you have no food allergies or sensitivities, but you avoid certain foods because you think you're being good, then you're trying to control the food instead of focusing on hunger and fullness. Hunger and fullness. You have to get in tune with your body and ask, how hungry am I? How full am I? This is the only way you're going to successfully lose weight with intermittent fasting. When you learn how to evaluate true hunger, you're going to discover that you don't need to eat as much food or as many meals as you think you do. You might end up only eating one meal a day. Now, don't look at it and think, that's crazy, I might as well give up now. You're going to find out what works for you, and as you learn to recognize true hunger, you're going to find yourself eating less and less. Start with learning not to eat more than what your body needs. To help you do that, I developed the hunger scale. The next time you think about eating food, locate your level of hunger on the hunger scale first. The hunger scale. Never eat past 4 on the hunger scale. 0, hungry, hungry, hippo hungry, starving, ravenous, weak, grouchy. All you can think about is what to eat and how you can get it. You may get a headache, struggle to concentrate, or get hangry. 1, stomach is growling. Empty stomach. You can physically hear your stomach growling and feel an empty sensation. It's important that you feel both sensations because your stomach can growl for other non-hunger reasons like digestion. Be sure that it's growling because it's empty. Everything sounds good to eat at this point of hunger. 2, hungry. You're starting to think about food and certain things sound good to you. You're deciding what your body is craving. 3, not hungry, not full, neutral. You sense that there's some food in your stomach and you're at peace. Your stomach feels comfortable. 4, satisfied, full, comfortably full. You might want to eat more, but you shouldn't. 5, stuffed, uncomfortably full. You're getting tired because your body is using all its energy to digest food. You may want to take a nap or need to unbuckle your belt. You feel as if you've overeaten. Identify true hunger. The crux of this entire book is the proper understanding of hunger. To understand hunger, you have to properly define it. Hunger is the physical need for fuel. It's something that comes in cycles. You're never hungry all the time. Hunger is also something we can often confuse with appetite. Appetite is your mental desire for food. You can have an appetite all the time. If you come back to work after your lunch break and someone brings in donuts, you might eat one. That's not hunger, that's appetite. Most people never know their true hunger because they don't let themselves get hungry. The goal with intermittent fasting is to let yourself get hungry. We want to be excited about getting hungry. When you're truly hungry, you know exactly what your body is craving and what you want to eat. On the flip side, when you're not hungry, a friend can ask you what you're in the mood for, and you have to decide. That opens the door to unnecessary eating. When you eat according to true hunger, you're not eating when the clock tells you to. There's no more, it's 12 o'clock, that's lunchtime. It takes about a week to figure out true hunger. For some people, it's because they've never heard their stomach growl and they've gotten so heavy that they could probably go without eating for days. Hunger can also be confused with dehydration. You can think you're really hungry when you're actually thirsty. Staying hydrated will help you learn to differentiate between those two feelings. You don't eat because the clock says it's lunchtime and everyone else is going out to eat. You wait until your stomach growls and your body is physically hungry for food. If you're not hungry, then there is no reason to eat. Our bodies were designed with this instinctive understanding of fullness. Overeating is not natural. So you think you can change your body by eating the same way every day. It's just not going to work. You have to switch it up a bit and get the results you want. You just need some straight up great food ideas. This is where OMAD and a tasting with a little keto flexing and a good understanding of the Japanese concept of hara-hachi bu come in, which I'll cover later in this book. Defining fullness. I never really understood what the definition of full was before I began this journey. I always felt like I was hungry and could eat all day. Sometimes I would come home from work, and if I was wearing a tight dress, I would change into pajamas so I could eat more at dinner. I don't do that anymore. Now, full is a polite feeling for me. Instead of eating until I'm full, I eat until I'm barely full or satisfied. Stuffed and satisfied feel different. If you're eating to the point that you have to take off your belt or change into your pajamas, then that means you're eating beyond full. I learned my biggest lesson on fullness from one of my thin friends, my hairdresser, Danielle. One day in conversation, I discovered that she only likes to eat one slice of pizza for lunch some days. I asked her if that really filled her up, and she told me it didn't. She explained to me that when she finishes that slice, even though she's not full, she will be 20 minutes later. Thin people don't eat to get to full. I've learned that they actually hate being full. They don't like the way it feels. You have to adjust your definition of full and not expect the kind of, quote, full feeling you're used to. Don't be the kind of person who eats faster so she can taste more food before she's too stuffed to eat any more. There's a real science to understanding when you're truly full and truly hungry, but it's something you'll learn intuitively. Thin eaters and fullness. In all my research, I learned that thin eaters have certain eating characteristics that revolve around how they perceive fullness. Thin eaters wrap up their food when they're done eating and do it without arguing, pouting, or complaining. They know that they'll get hungry again eventually, and they don't want to feel stuffed. This will give your brain time to register that it's full before you clean your whole plate. It's also important to eat slower so you can sense when your body is full. If you eat too fast, you'll blow right by just enough before you realize it. There's a balance to figuring out when you're full. On days that you're only eating OMAD, you're tempted to get really, really full to compensate, but you can't do that. Even if you're someone who works out and has more muscle mass, you can't use the fact you need more calories as an excuse to binge. It's important for you to create a habit of getting hungry. If you're feeling especially hungry when you sit down to eat, take time to calm yourself down so you're not going wild on your food. Use a timer and measure how long it takes you to eat your food. Thin women take about 20 to 25 minutes to eat every time. Remember, at the 10-minute mark, they might take a full 5 to 10 minute pause and see if they're hungry. If so, they eat more.